before I pass on, open the floor to questions from the floor, I'd like to ask the panelists here, as we have really the champions of the Hong Kong business community connection to the rest of the world here, right here, from around the world. What are the messages you'd like to convey, as to why now? Why should entrepreneurs from these communities around the world look at Hong Kong now? Why now? And what's the, why would be the timing so important now? Maybe Simon, could you?
Okay. Why now? Why not? Why not? No, I think well, Hong Kong has if you look at Silicon Valley and what's coming out of Silicon Valley, things like Facebook and these types of businesses, they're solving a social need in that case, according to Mark Zuckerberg. I think if you look at what next trend is, if you look at wearable tech, you look at device-orientated products like Cesar's talking about, I think this stuff is going to get made in China, probably. And certainly, Hong Kong is 1 hour away from Shenzhen. I did the drive myself last week. It's so you can have here what I call a good rule of law, free access to capital, free flowing banking system. So as an early stage investor, I can put my money in, I can get my money out, and it's $1 to set up a company here. And it's a global mindset. This market is too small to be a local market. So you have to think global from day one. I think Hong Kong has a multicultural society here. So, one of the startups we just invested in, the 3 people speak 6 languages, so, and that's quite common. And I think, so Hong Kong has this true, East meets West culture, and it has this, for an early stage company, it has a really low cost to get going, and it can think global from day one. And if it's manufacturing, which is the trend now, it's definitely wearables, and B2B businesses are a little bit more complicated than hardware, certainly. So IoT, smart city, I include in that. That's one thing. FinTech, for example, another area I'm heavily involved in. Here you've got Chinese banks sitting right next door to Western banks. That creates quite an interesting dynamic, both from a human capital perspective. There's a lot of brain power here. There's a lot of Chinese institutions that want to go into Europe and America and use technology to do it. There's a lot of Western institutions that want to go into China and India, want to use technology to do it. And they've got the money to spend to invest in startups or support startups. So that's why we're, for example, partnered with DBS Bank. That's why we're partnered with AIA Insurance. That's why we're partnered with Nissan, who is Infinity. We see, a lot of institutional brands looking to invest in startups in this region. We see this market as a great hub to connect everything to everything.
Thank you. Cesar?
So the reason why I looked at Hong Kong, what I think everybody should be looking at it is because, my perspective when I arrived, I was looking at Hong Kong almost as an ideal city in terms of quality of life. Like, it's a vertical city that has a lot of greens, incredibly dense, but it could be a very green city. And if you look at the evolution of societies, like pretty much all societies go through the same cycles. They go from a survival to an agricultural society, to industrial, then to be a service-based, and then to be information-based. So we are transitioning out now of this information society. So what is next? What is going to create more value than Facebook? What is going to create more value than Baidu or all these companies? And I think, and even that's what the government outlines, is that it's going to be creativity. It's going to be a determining factor. Who gives the order in the factory? Who gives the order to the factory owners? It's people actually who have the ideas, right? And then what is actually even beyond creativity? I think it's going to be wisdom. So after we have this playful, mischievous relation to technology and to nature, to each other, how do we create a society that actually functions, that is sustainable? And I think Hong Kong is the best place in the world actually to generate and to be creating this kind of a postmodern society, where you have, like I said, all the ingredients of manufacturing, intelligence, finance, legal, work ethics, everything is there. So I think it's also an aging society. So I think the next thing are going to happen here, and we want to be part of this.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Leroy?
I was asked by the Hong Kong ICPA 2 weeks ago, and one of the things I said was, Hong Kong is just a great place to do business, period. Startups or just any business, and I guess that is one of the reasons why everyone's here. It's a great place, the law, the tax, the banking system, everything. So I think that's always been there. And all these innovations that we talked about, I think one thing we all will agree is this is really the way forward. And once we agree this is the way forward, now is always better than later. I think it should be now.
I'm conscious of the time. I've been told that we have to finish off in about 3 minutes. So I have one question I can have time to ask. This question is addressed to Cesar, and I'd like to get other panelists' views as well. How do you make those innovations to becoming a product? And the second question is, how long does it take to make this business sustainable?
Okay, so my perception of sustainable is a bit different. Is the idea that whenever you produce something, then the amount of energy and resource you put in it represents a certain quantity of carbon, for example. So for me, a company that's sustainable is a company that does good to society as a whole. So it's a very integral thing, and same for social. And so I personally, I advocate this, but even if that's what I advocate, unfortunately, I haven't got a business that's sustainable yet, even if we do lots of effort in that direction. So I don't have the answer. The answer is that we have to invent it. It's a necessity. It's an imperative.
Thank you. Simon, do you have any views?
Maybe I'll just mention, when it comes to manufacturing, the timeline question. It's an interesting one. I'm a big fan of Lean Startup and the kind of what we call the MVP. If you haven't read the Lean Startup book, you should read this. Quite interesting, basically about how you can make stuff. We saw it in MakerLab a minute ago. They've made something. They know there's a demand because 200 people want it. And, you don't need to go out there and do what Henry Ford did 100 years ago. I think people want a car, then he has to go buy the patent, then he has to go get a manufacturing business set up, buy all the material, make all the cars, put it on the floor, and then hope people buy it. You don't need to do that anymore. You can do things much quicker. You can create prototypes and concepts overnight. We've done 48-hour hackathons, created the stuff overnight. And so I think that's one thing, to keep in the back of mind when it comes to manufacturing cycles. It's going to be much quicker now. It can be, thanks to 3D printing, again, which you highlighted, things are much quicker. So you don't have to think about everything in like, it's going to take 6 months to R&D and then a year to manufacture before, blah, blah, blah. You don't need to be that way anymore.
Thank you. Leroy?
Just to give you an example, exactly piggyback on this. So we decided that we're going to be putting this product out on Thursday. We manufactured it Friday. We actually put it in our exhibits on Saturday. And Sunday we had like 200 people saying that they want it. So we have 1 week to decide if we're going to sell them by Christmas. So basically this week we're going to decide if we put something in manufacture, and it's going to be ready in 2 weeks. So that's how we work. Like we decide that for the next week it's got to be ready, and we ship it.
So the speed to market, speed to production, speed to prototyping.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, the traditional financial world, I understand when they invest in something, they look at time horizon, the risk profile, and all the number crunching to get it right in their portfolio. I totally get that, right? But I think, number side apart, that is one thing that is clear, is to understand how fast the world is changing on that front, which we just mentioned. Things, the prototyping, the way they build stuff, the way all the technology is different. And I think once we have that knowledge incorporated into our investment strategies, everything will make a lot more sense.
Thank you. One final thing I'd like to ask each of you to just one sentence, very short, a takeaway to our guest here today. A takeaway sentence that you want to convey to them.
Okay, I'll start. As I said, don't look at startup as a different world, isolated world. Is part of what we do in this society. So get involved. I think we all need your support.
Invest in, like we're all saying, like what really brings a purpose to your life, whatever really has a meaning to you.
You stole my line.
Oh, sorry.
But that's okay. I think, as I said, live a life of purpose. Be involved in things that mean something to you, and do act like you've got nothing to lose. Don't calculate what you could lose. I think it's very important to have a life of purpose.
I'd like to please join me in thanking our panelists today.